Who's got the screen? Can you, well, never mind. I'll assume everybody else
My glasses keep falling.
can, all right, 4:30, let's get going. So we have here Leaf, me, Nancy Goodnow, and our latest member, Cody Grabhorn.
Yep.
You guys were.
Oh, Cody, I needed to come see you anyway.
Yeah, Cody is the new OCHS
Yes,
director.
he's Ed.
He's the
Oh,
new-
no.
Well, I like the name Cody. Yes.
And we've got Ray, we've got Richard, we've got Donna, we've got Gil, and we have Lois.
Lois.
Hey, what a great crowd. Okay. And are we expecting anybody else? I don't. What about Jared?
I don't think we'll see Jared.
No, that's right. This is, that school is back in. And just on the way between the front door and down here, we picked up a new team member by the name of Eric Obernauer.
Obernauer, yep.
Eric Obernauer, who is, well, he's I think he's a retired social studies teacher at Canandaigua. And he's also a member of the Environmental Conservation Board, and he's a town resident, and he's interested in history. So he's going to start coming to our meetings as of next time.
He's still working on 2 degrees, one in American history and another in environmental sciences too.
Oh, okay, well, that's right up my alley.
That's why I said he had to
So,
join.
Yeah, yeah. And so, and the person we don't have anymore is Nancy Hayden, who has retired from our membership. So we'll miss Nancy, and but she said she would help us out with various projects as needed. So she had offered to maybe do a newsletter article about German Brothers, the history of German Brothers as a business. So I'll follow up with her on that. And she also volunteered her husband to help us with the Onanda Park interpretive panels. So hopefully we'll see a little bit of her on that too. So first of all, let's welcome Cody. And you want to tell us a little bit about, you've been here for what, a few months? You're a town resident actually, right?
Yes, I am a town resident actually. So I moved here May 18th, I think. And I started the job June 1st. And can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, started the job June 1st. So today actually marks 3 months for me. And, you know, been getting up to date on what the museum is, what we have, where I want to take it, and all of that sort of stuff. So we are kind of in the beginning stages still, but I am starting to feel more comfortable, starting to feel like some of the programs that I'm planning are actually coming into play now. So that's a good thing. And, you know, we're actually looking, right now we are searching for a director of education because Preston Pierce is going to be retiring at the end of December. So that is an active search that we have right now. And, you know, thinking about fundraising, budgets, all of that sort of stuff for next year is on my mind. But about me, I'm originally from Minnesota. I got my undergraduate degree in Wisconsin. And then I moved out to Richmond, Virginia. I was there for 3 years, moved up to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I was there for 3 years, and now I'm up here. So that's kind of the short trajectory of my life. Of course, I'm willing to talk to anyone more about, you know, what part of history I like, you know, why I chose to be the director of a museum like the Historical Society, and of course, what I think I can bring to the table here to this team. But I think that's, you know, if someone wants to talk about that more, we can do that, but I won't take too long.
Great. Well, one of the things this team does is to write a newsletter entry for the town's digital newsletter, which comes out at the beginning of the month, every month.
Okay.
So if we don't have anything lined up already, we've got some sort of tentative ideas, but if you have if you would like to take the opportunity to use that space to introduce yourself to the residents of the town and, go on about
Yeah,
about local history and your impressions and so on, we'd love to have it, although I'll leave that up to you. You can let me know if that strikes you as a good idea, either for October, for November, for 6 months from now, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay, sounds great.
You'll find out today about all the things we got going on. First thing on our agenda is to talk about when we meet, because the last time, when was it? Around the beginning of the summer, we decided to try something different and start meeting on Wednesday late in the afternoon rather than Thursday first thing in the morning. And the hope was that some of the people who are employed would have an easier time coming to our meetings if it was later, if it was later in the day rather than the conflict. So we used to have a conflict with Ed because of something that happened at OCHS. You had a meeting with the accountant or something like that. So we always had to leave the meetings early when they were in the morning. But, and then Marcy Deal also said she preferred later, but you're a whole new slate. So how do you feel about early meetings as opposed to late?
I'm fine with early. Yeah,
8:30 is okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have a preference? My feeling is these late afternoon meetings have not really gotten us any more people. But, so I just as soon go back to Thursday morning. And also late afternoon, there's a little bit of a problem because the town staff is gone and then we don't know how to lock up or turn off the computers, and it's sort of a technical issue with 4:30 to 6. So one thing is today, Leaf is going to lock the building, or at any rate, we need to get out of here by 5:20. So that will keep our meeting concise. So any comment on meeting time? Anybody prefer Wednesday at 4:30, or is going back to Thursday okay with you guys?
Let's go back to
Linda,
the morning.
I prefer the.
Go ahead,
Morning's fine, 8:30, oh.
Oh, you can do it, Lee. Come on.
You're a
I have to be in
boy.
here at 11:30, so maybe I'll just switch my hours. That'll be
I
fine.
get busy during the day. And I don't-
It's only once a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it doesn't have to be 8:30. I mean, actually, would anybody mind making it 9 or? I don't know.
What the group wants is what I'll go along with, because like I said, it's once a month. I mean, it's not gonna kill me.
Mondays is fine with me, or Thursday, or any day of the week.
Well,
I like the afternoon meetings, but if I can do the morning, but my preference would be afternoon, but whatever.
would you prefer to make it a little later, like 9 or 9:30 if?
That would be fine.
That's good.
Mind that. Why don't we try 9? And I'll have to check with Sarah and make sure there isn't somebody else who's got the meeting room at 10, in which case we would have to stick to the 8:30, but I will let you all know.
9 on
On the first Thursday of the month.
first Thursday.
First Thursday. Okay. Now, next thing on the agenda is our grant. First of all, we got it. Everybody knows that. And so we are now ready to plunge into phase 2 of the Historic Resources Survey. And we have Katie Como, who you may remember from a couple of years ago. She's working on the second half, just as she did on the first half. And Cody, just to bring you up to speed, this is a statewide grant that we've gotten to do what's called
preservation, right?
it's a preservation, what's the name of it? Wait a second.
What it ends up being, Cody, is like Barrow comes in and does an assessment of our
Reconnaissance.
cultural and historic resources. And it de facto ends up being a town history
Mhm.
told through, all of those buildings and resources.
Right, the word I was looking for is reconnaissance level. So
Okay,
this is like the basic level. This is this is phase one, which is, as Lee said, the basic history of the town. Phase two is going to be a list of individual properties that they consider to be significant to town history. So, and it's based on the kind of background and categories that emerged when she did the first one. So there are sort of property types that were identified, and the idea is to identify the individual properties that are associated with those types. And the major types are probably the biggest one is agriculture, because that's going to be the farmhouses and outbuildings and so on that are associated with the early and the long time family farms in the town, because most of the town is agriculture. Second one is recreation, is what's called, but that's basically the cottages, the lakefront.
Okay.
And then the other ones, which are much smaller in number, I think, are transportation, and that's going to be things associated with railroads, steamboats, roads, education, and that's the one-room schoolhouses and other institutional buildings. And then what they call community planning and development, but that really is the concentrations of population. So Cheshire is the main one, and there are 3 other places that over the course of the town's history have been sort of groups, clusters of development. One of those is called Centerfield. It's on the way to Bloomfield on Route 5 and 20. The second one is called Academy. That's down in the south end of the town. And the third one is Paddleford, which is a very small one. There's virtually nothing of it left, but it was up in the north part of town. It was a railroad crossing between 2 different. So anyway.
And they were all kind of functional hamlets with a church and a
A
store,
small.
school district schoolhouse.
Except Paddleford, which was really just a railroad station. But anyway, so Katie has asked if she could get some help from local people on collecting just sort of the information from the public about what properties are out there that might be important to local history, but not immediately obvious. And that is, when we did this before, at the conclusion of this first phase, Katie gave a public program in Cheshire, and there were about 80 people who came. It was very, very well attended, and there were quite a number of people who, at the end, came up and started telling us these stories about their properties, of things that had been handed down through their family and whatever, and they thought that they might have the oldest cabin in the town or that sort of thing. So what Katie would like, if we're able to do it, is help with identifying those sorts of things. And when she and Ray and I talked about this a few weeks ago, she kind of narrowed it down into the categories I was talking about. One would be Cheshire, and we were hoping that Nancy, you would volunteer to kind of head up that, but you live in Cheshire. And Centerfield, if there's anybody, and Ray, maybe if there's anybody in Centerfield who would be a really good resource for the history of Centerfield and the families that live there.
No, I have to put my thinking cap on. The
Okay.
ones I knew the best have all passed away.
Okay,
Well, actually, I might have a suggestion.
good. Who's that?
Deacon Claude from St. Mary's lives in Centerfield in a historic home.
Who? Who?
Claude.
Deacon Claude from St. Mary's. And he's lived there for, I don't know, 15, 20 years now at least.
So he must know everybody.
in Centerfield, is that big farmhouse?
Yeah, no, just, all right, so you know the one, on the McCann,
Yeah.
all right, so there's the white one with the red shutters, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's across the street.
Okay. Didn't the
I think it's
Bliss,
blue now. Yeah.
I can't remember. Ray, didn't
Yeah.
the Bliss used to live in that corner house?
Bliss? One of them?
No,
No?
no, further north or
Oh.
further west.
Okay.
Well, if you know Deacon Claude, would you like to?
I could
contact
try to
him?
reach out to him.
Yeah, okay, we will do that.
Now, does Katie have a particular time that she wants to meet with us, or you can just give her my number?
Once I have some names, then maybe we could all get together by phone and have a meeting with her and kind of brainstorm about how we're gonna do this.
Okay. I'm gonna be gone probably not. Starting next Tuesday for about 3 weeks. So I hate to do that to your volunteer and then tell you.
Okay, well, we'll keep that in mind. If there's anybody else who knows Cheshire as well as you do,
Fred.
Fred, he's going with you.
No, he's not.
Oh, he's not?
I'm going
Oh,
home to Massachusetts, so
well, can we ask Fred too?
yeah, I think he'd be willing to help.
All right, great. Now, one of the big categories, as I said, was agriculture, and Ray, who's on the farmers team, what's it, the agriculture team. Ray, can we kind of put you in charge of the farm end of it? Is that okay?
Sure. And I would be glad to do the Paddleford Road too.
Okay. Now, what about academy? Yeah, anybody know?
Yeah,
I'm gonna suggest Leaf for Academy.
Oh, yeah, 'cause you're interested in academy, right? All right, we will do that. And then the last one was the lakefront. And I was gonna volunteer myself for that.
yeah.
Because, but I would also like to know if there are people who are associated with other points. I mean, I know the Menteith Point history really well. And can you think of other families that have been around some of the other parts of town for a long time? Like, for instance, at Titchener's Point, there's somebody named Carol Frost that when I was talking to a property owner down there, and she mentioned that Carol Frost had been there forever and knew everything.
They're on the south end of the Titchener Point.
Titchener Point, right, yeah. But what about, no, not Titchener, this is Point Rochester. Point Rochester is Carol Frost.
Same thing.
No, Titchener's Point is the one where the Kellogg's are.
Yeah, and
And
the other side is, well, never
and then the other, Point Rochester is where Onanda is,
is where?
where Onanda is, Onanda Park.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So what about Titchener's Point? I mean, maybe Paul Kellogg would be.
Paul Kellogg is if he's
Um,
well enough.
okay,
He's had some health problems.
Yeah.
or maybe Brad Kellogg, is he still around?
Who?
Brad, is that his son?
His son Brad Kellogg, or Shirley Kellogg?
Maybe.
All right, I'm just gonna put down Kellogg's, but does anybody else come to mind that would know the history about Titchener's Point? Any of the
There's a
boss?
couple from Rotary that I know. But I can't think of his name right now.
Well, that's okay. If you think of him, let me know.
I can give you Dick. I'll give you the name.
Oh, you mean Dick McGavern?
Yes,
Oh, Dick McGavern. Yeah, they haven't lived there for that long, but he might know. Yeah, you're right. Or anybody in the Foster family, like the Foster Fruit Farm people?
I think they've all passed.
Okay.
I think.
You've probably gathered by now, Cody, that those points all end up being like real like mini neighborhood communities.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's Black Point. And that would be I'll track down Black Point. I have some relatives there. And the parts of it that are north of Titchener's Point, like, is there anybody that comes to mind, Ray, that you would really be familiar with that? Like we talked about that farm, along by the Wolverton house and the Wolverton Cemetery and the water plant and the yacht club.
You can keep listing and listing and listing. It's gonna be a hard job to separate all of those.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, well, this is a good list anyway, so I will take it upon myself to contact all these people and see if we can get them all together. But anybody else interested in volunteering for helping to kind of orchestrate this? I mean, one of the things is if we do identify people and they're willing to do an oral history project where they come in and sit down and answer questions, or just, willing to be taped, be put on tape, or maybe have somebody do a video on their phone. I mean,
Frank did a video of students.
yeah, I remember that.
Elementary, school, yeah.
Yeah,
He's got a
Jared-
copy of it.
Jared did that.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, I'd help where, where needed. We're too new in the area to know all these different people and places and everything, but I can help out with something.
Okay, thank you. I mean, just the
Knock on
logistics.
doors.
Can you use a video camera?
Probably.
Me? No.
Oh, it's pretty easy. It's just like taking a picture on your phone. You just get video instead of picture.
Oh,
You hold up the phone. That's about it.
You know what Fred has?
As long as you have permission.
Oh, that's true.
I'm gonna ask him, because we were doing videos for CPAC and for the meeting hall. And he bought a piece of equipment to record on. Let me check with him and see if he's got
Okay.
that, if we still have it or if somebody else has it.
All right. Well, that gives us a start on that anyway.
what did Nancy say? I didn't hear her.
Nancy said her husband Fred might have some equipment that would help us.
I don't know if it's what it is, but he was using it when he did or prepared a presentation that he gave to Rotary Club and Kiwanis and everything. And I don't know if we still have it or if somebody else has it now. But I'll see what kind of equipment he has.
Okay, great. Well, let's go on to the next one, which is a documentation of historic buildings before they get demolished. And as I said in the agenda, there are 3 of them that are on tap to be demolished sometime later this year. And I've been in touch with all of them, and they have all said, yes, you can come in and take pictures. And I thought I'd just wait until after the summer was over, but hopefully before the bulldozers start running. So would anybody like to be involved in that?
Sure, I can take pictures again.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, Richard, you had great pictures there. So these are all along the lake between Onanda Park and Titchener's Point. One is just on the opposite Onanda on the other side of the point. One is on North Menteith Drive, and one is in between, that Futterman one that we talked about a few months ago. And then at some point in the future, it looks as if the Kellogg cottages at Titchener's Point will probably come down, but we don't know that yet. So that's just.
God, I hope not.
I hope not, but don't count on it.
We'll have to hope that we can get some good weather where the temperatures are not in the 90s or high 80s,
Right.
raining.
Well, September and October should be good time.
Yeah, I hope so.
And as I said, there's, one of them we demolished, then they changed their minds and it's still there. So every now and then you get good news on this.
That's good.
So the projects we were talking about before we went on our summer break, the first one I'll deal with is the Onanda Park interpretive panels. And Cody, for your benefit, this is Onanda Park is, town park down there, about halfway down the lake.
I have been there a couple of times at this point, yeah.
Oh, okay, good. And there's a kiosk, not on the lake side of the road, but the other side, that's got these panels that are kind of shabby looking, and we thought, why don't we redo those and maybe make one of the panels about the history of the park and the other two panels about the ecology of the park, with the help of some of the other volunteer teams like us. So my thought was, one's history, one of them would have a map, and the map then could be annotated with a lot of information about the trails and about the animals you might see, and the trees and the flowers and the birds and everything else in Onanda Park. And that one, we could work with the Environmental Conservation Board. And then the third one might be about the recreation programs and opportunities. And we could work with the town, with the Parks Department on that. So I made contact with both of those entities, and with the environmental conservation side of it, there were two people who were, well, one person particularly interested is Edith Davey, who is very good at doing these education things. She used to be an education person at Soil and Water Conservation. So she had all kinds of ideas about birds and fossils and trees and trails, and that she's full of ideas. So that's great. And then on the recreation side, the town has a relatively new staff person named Lindsay Frary. I think it's Lindsay.
Yeah.
Lindsay Frary, who is in charge of recreation. And so I talked with her, and we talked a little bit about the fact that if we do an interpretive panel, it's likely to be there for who knows how long, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And you don't want it to get outdated. So the recreation thing maybe should be mostly about the natural history, actually, about the trails and the things you can do, and maybe different seasonal things like tracking what the tracks look like in the snow, and sledding and ice fishing, and all these things that are kind of timeless. So she liked that idea, but she told me something that was new to me, which is the town has contracted with MRV, the engineering firm, to actually do a master plan for Onanda Park, which is going to include moving some of the trails. So that means maybe we should slow down a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Why do they want to do that?
one immediate reason is that the trails turn out to not be on the town's property.
Okay, that's probably a good reason.
Okay.
Neighbors have started to complain that people are wandering off the
Good to
trail.
know.
Oh, I know what they're talking about.
I do too, because I do it myself, I have to admit. So for that reason, they want to, it's not anything major that they want to do. They just want to realign the trails to make sure they're on the town property.
Discourage people from going up the
Maybe
gully.
Put up some new signs.
No, that wouldn't do it.
Or something.
I have no confidence in MRV. When they did the master plan for Cheshire, they took the walking path right through my front yard, about 10 feet from my front door.
Well,
And I asked them, I said, well, how did you do that? I mean, have you ever been to Cheshire? Well, no, not really. We just used maps and topographical charts and stuff like that.
oh, for heaven's sake.
However, 8 o'clock the next morning, they were in my front yard looking at everything and canceled the plans, but it was just such an aggravation.
Yeah, well, there is a Parks Committee, and they're overseeing
Yeah.
MRV.
Well,
So
thank goodness I had gone to the master plan meeting and saw what they'd done.
yeah. Well, now the other person who's interested in working on it is Dennis Brewer. And Dennis
Oh,
Brewer
yeah.
was the recreation director
Yeah.
for decades and worked out of Onanda Park, so he knows it very well. So between Edith and Lindsay and Dennis and me, and anybody else who wants to work on it, maybe David Hayden, who offered to help with the graphics, we should be able to put something together, but it may be that we need to hold off on the schedule and not be so aggressive on the timing. So anybody have any other ideas on that or want?
I think that's good to wait.
Yeah, yeah. Well, okay, so that's the interpretive panels. Now, next one is the maps.
Okay, the maps, as you know, have a lot of scratches and bends and folds in them and this sort of thing. So I'm working on those. They've all been layered into one big file in Photoshop. A file it's over 6 gigabytes in size. But anyway, I'm going through and retouching them, and they've all been isolated. I put a background into it. I've got to finish the retouching though, and I've got to put a border on them. And then at that point, I'll present them for approval in case anybody wants to have suggestions. But I'm trying to get the titles in the same position, get the compass in the same position, so that it can go all the way through on all of them. But it's going to be a few weeks longer.
Okay,
We're getting there. Now, next one is your our Academy Cemetery. Donna and I have been out to Academy Cemetery and we've plotted out all of the gravestones.
oh, look at that. Wow.
Awesome.
Oh,
Gee, I didn't realize that was so big.
This is 36 inches wide, but there's no way that's going to compress down to a brochure the size that we did with Hun. So we'll have to figure out how we're going to present this, whether we're going to have a small one to show on as an overview, and then have sections that will publish in a brochure. It may be necessary that, in fact, it probably will be necessary the brochure be multiple pages. Now, what I want to do on the map here, as I explained to Sarah Linda earlier, is right now sizes of the gravestones are all over the place. Well, I'm going to set them into 3 different sizes: small, medium, and large. And then the fourth one would be like a column or one of the square ones. But I've got to take this and go through the cemetery stone by stone and indicate what size each of these lines here should be on this. And that way it'll end up being a lot more meaningful for whoever's going to be searching for a stone, because they'll be able to have a better idea when they orient whatever we publish. They'll be able to orient it better to what they're looking for. So I had hoped to get out there to do this. Don and I go out there and map this out again, as far as labeling small, medium, large, but the weather hasn't cooperated, and I'm really not in favor of being out there in 90-degree heat with 100% humidity. So I'm hoping that this month is a little bit cooler, so it'll make it a little more.
Wimpy.
Yeah, I know. I tell you, it's horrible when you get older, but no, that's what we're looking to do. And then after that's all done, after we have all the stones size on the layout here, I am going to need help. We're going to need help to for some people to go out and now mark off what stone belongs to who. We have a directory or a map that was given to us that I have going to try and incorporate where I can, or verify from a gentleman in Academy there, or I guess it comes from Naples. That's where he comes from.
Academy.
Yeah, and but we want to verify the names that are on the list that we have with the actual stones themselves to make sure everything lines up. Donna has found some errors in the listing, so it's going to be going one by one through all these stones to verify who's there and where they are. At that point, I'm going to need help from everybody, or to help go through and do all this end of it. And then after that, then we can sort of finalize things.
What's your time frame on that, Richard, to accomplish that?
Well, if the weather's nice, maybe I can be able to get out in the next couple of weeks. I was hoping to get out before this, but the weather hasn't been to my liking.
Mine either.
But hopefully this next week is supposed to be cooler. We'll see. If it is, then we can get down and at least I can get the size of the stones indicated and revise what I've got here. And then print out another section. What I'll do is I will divide what I've got here now up into sections that are each 36 inches across. And I'll put this into maybe 5 different sections. So each section might be 18 by 36 or whatever. And so we can go in and number them, name them, and have a directory. And then after we have all that done, then I can come back and put it all together.
Email me and let me know what you're thinking, time and day, and I will certainly try to find time in my schedule to assist you.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, it'll probably be a week or so, probably a couple of weeks before I'm ready to split this thing up, because I'll print these things out in wide format so that it makes it easier to label the stones.
And I will say, when Rich and I were over there earlier, like, I don't know, a couple months ago or whatever, and I started at the, what side was it, huh? At the beginning, we started
At the beginning, yeah. It's actually
And,
this is the west side.
And some of the stones, I couldn't even read the names on because I was writing them down, what the, who each one was. And then I was going to compare it to the list that we got from Sarah Linda quite a while ago. But a number of the stones, I couldn't even read who they are. So.
And I feel your pain, Donna.
Yeah, so we'll just have to kind of take what the DAR did and for those and say that's who they are, that's who the people are. So.
I would suggest putting an offer in to have them help you with that endeavor.
That's a good idea, yeah.
Mhm.
Because once this is done, it'll be a very accurate layout for their benefit, for the town's benefit, and for anybody else that wants to go hunting for relatives.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe there is a group that meets, I believe, once a week. Isn't that right, at OCHS, called the Genealogy Committee?
There is, yeah. Yep,
Right.
So I think they're monthly right now at this point,
Oh,
and they're actually meeting tonight. Yeah.
is Betty McMahon? Is that the name? That name comes to mind, but I'm not sure.
I think Betty's part of it, yeah. Barb Hill is one of the heads.
So they are the people who really use those notebooks at OCHS when
Yeah.
genealogy inquiries come in, they use those to try to locate, who's in what grade, what cemetery and so on. So they're very familiar with the past research that has gone into these cemetery documents.
Yep.
So, and then also the town, I think, am I right in thinking the town has old records on a big old map that goes back decades and decades of who is where? Because I think I saw that. I think Sarah Reynolds had it was in a safe or something like that. So
I'll
there
see
are-
if I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ask Sarah about that.
So Richard, just so that you're aware, I mean, I think everybody probably is by now, but I am attempting to put together a town cemetery committee. It'll take a few months before we get town board action on it, like probably nothing concrete before Christmas. But we're attempting to put together a cemetery committee, which will become ultimately a de facto cemetery association, only obviously an arm of the town government. So what you and Donna have done and what we're trying to do to save the other cemeteries is absolutely critical. And that committee will ultimately be able to take all of that and take our cemeteries forward, hopefully far into the future. So I just want to personally tell you, thank you, because I know how much work the two of you have put into that and how arduous it has been. And how much I personally, just as for my own, how much I appreciate it.
Well, I have to thank, Donna, I have to thank all the people that came out on the day we did the drone shots of the cemetery overheads and who spent their time putting the orange bags over all the gravestones so we could recognize them from the air.
Yeah, that was Lois and her husband Vincent and Ray.
Yep.
And Ray's friend from Naples.
Yep.
What is his name again, Ray?
Oh,
Cam-
Kevin something? Is it Kevin?
Kevin somebody, yes.
Kevin Armstrong.
Yes,
Armstrong, yep,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Phenomenal.
yeah,
Yeah,
so I
so there-
appreciate all the help that we got from them, and
Yeah.
it made a big difference.
And I'm
hoping
certainly
that the
willing to
whole-
help again, so if there's anything that you're doing, that you guys are doing that, there's something that I could help out with, that where you don't have to have a lot of knowledge about, I'm certainly willing to be a worker bee, so
Well, Lois, as long as people can read and write,
I can do that.
that's all
But
I
I'm
need.
I'm starting to feel pretty inadequate on this committee, but I can read and write, so.
Lois, we're all worker bees.
That's my strength right now.
All right,
That's
so
okay.
I'll let you know, when we have this revised to reflect the different sizes of the stones. And when I've got things printed up in sections, so that every section is big enough to write on. And then we can put everything together, because this is going to be divided into rows as well. And then we can go from there.
And at least the rows are pretty much straighter here than they are at the Hun Cemetery.
Yeah,
I noticed there are some, yeah, I noticed there are some at Academy that are kind of off, and it's like, okay, well, what row are they in? Because they seem to kind of be in the open by themselves, but we'll be able to figure that out once Rich and I do the small, medium, and large. Project.
Hopefully the rest of the cemeteries in the town aren't as big as this one is. This
No.
is,
Well, would you like some help with the small, medium, large, or do you want to do that on your
no,
own?
because I've got to do that on my own, because I've only got one map here, and I've really got to go through. I walk down the rows and designate what size they are. Then when I come back here, it's going to be the computer time. That's going to take more time than walking down the rows.
And I'll be there for moral support when he's at the cemetery for the small, medium, and large.
It's going to be after we've got this revised for the different sizes, and I've got it printed in different sections. That's when I'm going to need the help, to indicate who is who on which of these stones.
Okay.
Nancy,
Yeah.
I think they'll agree that they're lucky they're not talking about Pine Bank.
Yeah, I just said that to Sarah Linda. I
That's big.
have a question to Richard, totally irrelevant, but when you do the drone pictures, can you see through the
No.
ground to see?
No, that's one of the things when I did the
Isn't that
drones,
all?
the foliage blocks a lot of the stones. And
Yeah.
so after I took all the drone shots and I put them all together, Donna and I then had to go back and draw in manually the ones that are under the foliage, under the trees. So, that took a little bit of time to go back there and try and figure out, okay, which ones do we have, and which ones are boundary markers and not gravestones, because everything was marked there. And so, I don't have any, I don't think I have any boundary markers indicated on here, where there are individual family plots. Like there's one plot there down by the second big pine tree, and they have a metal gate, a wrought iron gate there, and that's between two granite posts. Well, there's also another, let's see, 1, 2, I think 5 stones, small, probably 6 by 6 stones in the ground there that indicate the boundaries of that family plot, where perhaps they had a fence in there at one time or another. But it's just the stones that are now. And there's 3 or 4, I think, family plot areas down there. So
Yep.
it's,
I was wondering, because the original part of Pine Bank, which is back in the far corner, and there are a lot of trees there, that the stones have fallen over or were broken, and instead of trying to repair them or whatever, a lot of the stones were thrown over the bank into Menteith Creek. And I think some of them could be, if we had a major excavation, we might be able to find them, but there are some that I think just fell down and the grass grew over them and they've mowed and everything, and I think there's like less than 6 stones that are in that area.
Wow.
And it was, it was the original part of the cemetery, so.
Yeah,
I
there's
just-
one in the back there, the name of, what is it, Vestdonna? VESD, I think.
Yeah.
And he's all by himself against the back porch.
He probably wasn't originally.
Yeah,
No,
but no, I noticed that, because we did some geocaching down at Pine Bank. There's a geocache down below the hill there. And I noticed that there were quite a bit of stones that were broken in the back there. But that's like here at Academy too. There's a lot of stones here at Academy where the broken stones have been piled up around the 2 pine trees.
Yeah,
And, you have to wonder, okay, what do they belong to? And that's one of the things when we went back to verify that we had them all and to mark in the ones we didn't, we had to figure out, okay, now, do we count these as one or we count these as many? And you have to sort of figure out, okay, well, does this one really belong to one that's maybe 10 feet away and was just put here?
yeah.
It's
Well,
going to take some
the other
Sherlock
thing-
Holmes to do it.
The other thing, I understand that in one of the transitions from the Pine Bank Committee to the other Pine Bank Committee, a lot of the records were lost. So I don't know if the Historical Society or a town hall might have records that
Some.
they seem to be a little helter-skelter. I don't know.
I'll
They do some.
see what I can find out, Nancy.
I'm sorry, Ray?
I said they have some.
Yeah, okay. I've done, Fred and I have done the veterans and, but
Yep.
other than that, we don't know what else. She did find our plot, the records for the plot, but I don't know what records they had originally or what,
Well, Pine
Well,
Bank wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't for all those pine trees in the back left.
Yeah.
I hate to say this, but we gotta move on because we're gonna run out of time and those of us that are at town hall are gonna get locked in.
Okay.
Well, it'll be.
I got a very important thing to discuss with all of you. Maybe you've heard in the past that Gary Jones and I have been searching for a place to have an agricultural countywide agricultural museum. With that being said, I've been drawn back by Leaf to town of Canandaigua. We were starting in Hopewell. We've been now addressing the town of Canandaigua, and this may be of interest to Cody as well, because if we do this just right, we can maybe help with some of the size of the thing that you have taken care of with the Ontario County Historical Society. But we're now moving into the town of Canandaigua, just into the town of Canandaigua. There'll be a lot more in discussion. We're gonna need, the first thing we need to do is decide on a location. And that's gonna be a big item, but besides that, we're gonna have to decide what's gonna go in there. We're talking about stones, a storage place for stones, that came from Leaf. And I can, like I say, I can see more for the Ontario County Historical Society as well. So it's, keep it in mind, we're looking for a place to be called a agricultural historical space. And
Could potentially, and I had talked about the fact that you have a major storage issue.
Mhm.
And that if we had,
which we
did have another facility that would
ready.
offer you-
Yeah, so you need a warehouse.
because we also need one for headstones, just really
Yeah.
quick, Cody, I'm not gonna go into,
Yeah.
but we don't have an issue with headstones.
Yeah,
No, but you got an issue with a lot of other stuff.
All right, well,
I mean,
go ahead, Ray.
if we can supply you with an additional storage area, that might be all it would need, that we can also teach kids about. That's the primary thing, is going to be teaching of kids.
Okay, well, so everybody keep an eye out for a good potential building or location for this
Right.
multi-use
And
storage and display and education structure. I mean, a nice barn would be ideal.
Yep, yep.
So keep
We've
an eye out
looked
for
at,
the barn.
we've looked at two.
That's all.
Looked at two, and one has already been turned down. That was a beautiful barn. But we're still looking, so anything on the west side, no, east side of the town would be great, because we want to keep Geneva and Canandaigua involved. So
Okay.
that's my spiel.
So does that mean, Ray, that that barn on 5 and 20 that you had mentioned a year or so ago, that's out of the picture now? The
Yeah.
one that says what, 1902 or 1905 on it?
That is,
Oh, okay.
we got shot down by the, well, we got shot down by the town of Hopewell, but they've come back to us and want us to reconsider. We're not at this point, that we're not ready to do that. So we got our option open, but we're open for any options at this point. But
Okay,
the
Reese
intent
tells
would
me-
be, is going to be Ontario County, our agricultural district, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, thank you, Ray. Leaf tells me that we're getting kicked out of town hall here, so we're gonna have to wrap this up. But the
Okay.
one other thing I wanted to mention has to do with our budget for next year. Doug, the town board and manager and so on, asked us to make a request, and compared to last year, and what we ended up with was, this past year, we had $1,250 in the budget. We haven't spent any of it. I think we'll spend some of it on the map project, assuming that, Richard seems to be on track to getting that ready to go out to be manufactured. And Cody, these are maps that are gonna go up in the hall, they're town maps, history. So that'll spend some of it. And then we were thinking of the Onanda Park project for spending the rest of it. But if we have to postpone that, I'm not sure how that's gonna work out. But anyway, for next year, their tentative budget says they'll pay the match for the grant. In addition to that, we will, the budget has us in for, oh, here we go. $750 for the purpose of printing and other program materials that have to do with the cemeteries. So when we get the whole Academy Cemetery business settled, we'll have some money to use to print the map or the flyer or whatever we want to do with it. So that's one project. The other project is $750, which will be for when we have the final report here for phase 2, we'll have some money we can use on printing copies for public use and for having a public program like the one we had in Cheshire, printing posters
I think
and
you'll
that
do
kind of
that
thing.
again.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
That was a
So-
very good idea.
If you have other ideas or you want to argue for more or less or different projects, let me know, but that's what we've got in line for now. So do we have to leave?
We do.
Yeah.
And I will just say this about because they say you had me done. I will send you all an email about where it says grave marker project, all the grave business. I'll do an update. Ray, there won't be anything new to you, but I will give everybody an update in an email about where we're at with our cemeteries, headstones, that committee and so forth. And I'll try not to go on forever like I tend to do when I write.
Well, I'll just say, I think it's really great that Leaf has seized on the condition of the grave markers, because that's something that we all noticed when we were working on Hun, and I'm sure you're noticing it in Academy Cemetery, and Leaf is gonna, he's doing his best to actually try to do something about it, so more power to him, and I'm sure he'll be looking for our help and our participation, so.
Okay,
Any other pressing new business, or can we adjourn? I think we have to adjourn anyway, because.
We don't have any choice.
All right.
Thank you all. We've got a lot covered in an hour.
Yep. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye,
Okay,
everybody.
bye.
bye.
Turn this off.
Yes, I can end this by